In this video, I'm going to continue my video series on transcription, okay? And we're going to give you some things to do and not do when you're doing a transcription for somebody like Rev or Transcribe Me or some of these other companies. When you're working for them, these are things you should and also should not do, okay? Alright, the first thing I'm going to cover is what is a feedback word. Think back to any interview show you've seen on television. Usually you'll have the host of the show who is usually interviewing the guest and the person being interviewed, which usually is the guest of the show. Okay, so you have your interviewer, which is the guy who is asking all the questions, and then you'll have the interviewee who is answering the questions, who's usually the guest on the show. Okay? Often the host of the show will ask the guest a question. As the guest is answering, the host may at certain points say something to the guest to acknowledge that he not only heard what the guest had to say, but that he comprehended what the guest actually said. Okay? Now, I'm going to now give you an illustration of what I mean by all this. Alright. Now, before I begin, I want to say these kind of acknowledgement words should be omitted, actually removed, from a transcription because they don't add any context for the actual discussion that's taking place. Now, let me give you an example. Let's say the guest says, I drove to the bank. Now, the host says, right. Do you put right in the transcription? No, you don't. Then the guest goes on to say, I deposited the money. And the host says, okay. Do you put the okay in there? No, you don't. Because all he's doing is acknowledging that he has heard the guest, and on top of that, that he comprehended what the guest actually had to say. And then the guest says, and then I climbed into my car and drove to the store. Now, the next thing the host says is, I see. Where did you go next? Go ahead and include the I see because he is now acknowledging the entire response of the guest, and he is now trying to move the conversation forward. Okay? The words I see should be left in the transcription because it acknowledges that the host has heard everything that the guest said and has comprehended all of it. All the other words that I've said previously about the host should be discarded. Okay? Now, conjunctions at the beginning of sentences should be included in transcriptions despite proper English grammar. And we'll give you some examples. And my dog finally caught the frisbee. But this guy stole my smartphone. Or did you just skim the main text instead of reading every word the author wrote? Now, this is going to get kind of tricky because sometimes what you'll want to do is you'll want to put that and or but or into a lowercase and just continue on with the sentence. So some of this can be really kind of tricky. So hang in there. Okay. So did you finally wash the dishes? Okay. Conjunctions at the beginning of sentences should be preceded by a comma and should be preceded by a period. Okay. Alright, so and the tires on the truck got stuck in the mud, so okay. So in other words, if you're saying and the tires on the truck got stuck in the mud, you put a comma after mud and then put the word so and then continue on with the thought. Interjections should also be included in transcriptions. For instance, he lost the game. Well, he did say that it was going to rain. Yeah, I've heard this story before. Okay? So, when you're doing these interjections, you usually want to do the interjection and then have a comma afterwards. Now, what is an idiosyncrasy? Now, that's a bad word to pronounce. Idiosyncrasy. I can't even pronounce it. Okay, I'm going to just go flat out. I'll type in the description of this video. It's an idiosyncrasy. It's a pattern of speech that is indigenous to a particular group of people or to a particular land region. For instance, people have a distinctive speech pattern in the southeastern United States, despite the fact that they speak English just like people in the northeastern United States. Depending on what is said, this speech should be cleaned up in a transcription. For instance, if somebody says, "I'm not gonna do that," what you really need to say is, "I'm not going to do that." Now, this is for clean transcriptions. If you're doing this totally verbatim, you should leave it all in. But if you're cleaning things up a little bit, you have to clean this up. Or how about this? "You just gotta read this book." Well, what you'd want to say is, "You just got to read this book." "I want to go to the park." You don't say it like that. Not if you're cleaning up a transcription. You want to say, "I want to go to the park." "I kind of like this song." Okay? What you do is you type in, "I kind of like this song." Okay? "I could have trained to be an Olympic athlete." It should be transcribed as, "I could have trained to be an athletic athlete." Boy, I'll say it again. "I could have trained to be an Olympic athlete." Okay? "'Cause I said so." It should be saying, "Because I said so." And if you have one of those people that don't know how to pronounce words correctly, you need to clean it up. Like you have some of these Southerners, not all of them, but you have some of these Southerners that just don't know how to quite pronounce words right. So they'll stand there and say, "Specifically, I asked him to put his bike back into the garage." It should say, "Specifically, I asked him to put his bike back into the garage." "Why, he told me he was gonna go to that their store and buy some eggs." That kind of reminds me of Festus on Gunsmoke, if you've ever watched that show. Well, what it should say is, "He told me that he was going to go to that there store and buy some eggs." Sound a little better? Now, if a slang word can be found in a recognized dictionary, then it should be included in the transcription, because some words are actually in the dictionary. Even if they're slang, they're in the dictionary. Now, depends on what dictionary you're getting from. If you're getting something from some urban ghetto dictionary, forget it. We're talking about a Merriam-Webster dictionary or something like that. Okay? So you have a conversation. The first guy says, "I hope you understand what I just told you." And then the other guy says, "Oh, I got you, dude." Well, gotcha actually happens to be in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, so go ahead and include it. Or how about, "Y'all come back now, you hear?" Sort of sounds like the Beverly Hillbillies. Well, believe it or not, "y'all" is in the Merriam-Webster dictionary. "You ain't gonna drive through that storm, are you?" Well, believe it or not, the word "ain't" actually happens to be in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, so that should be included. There are times you may have to include bad grammar in your transcription. For instance, "There's so much coins in them boxes." "He want me to go to the bank because he want me to cash his check." It depends on how much cleaning up they want you to do. If a speaker uses a contraction, then transcribe the contraction exactly as he said it. Now, I can get a little tricky, and if you want more clarification on that, you can go ahead and ask me, and I'll try my best to work with you on that. Alright. I will tell you more in a future video, so I'd like for you to stay tuned.